This is Trent Price from T-rizzle's Variety Hour. You're listening to my interview with legendary singer-songwriter Larry Cordle. This interview was originally recorded October 15th, 2019. We recorded it in the backstage room at the Station Inn in Nashville, Tennessee. I aired the interview in November of 2019, and since the interview aired, Larry's new CD, called Where the Trees Know My Name, has been released. You can find it on Apple Music and all your music streaming services, as well as on Larry's website at larrycordle.com. That's LarryCordle.com. And keep in mind also, this was the very first interview I ever did for T-rizzle's Variety Hour. Enjoy the interview. Hello folks, I'm here at the Station Inn in Nashville, Tennessee with a bluegrass legend. 3 Grammy nominations, 2 IBMA Song of the Year awards, a CMA Song of the Year award, and you're the reigning Spigma Songwriter of the Year. You've guessed it, I'm here with Larry Cordle.
I think that's all correct, you know. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right what you said there. I believe so.
So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is this great country music I just listened to. Here at the Station Inn on Monday nights, every Monday at 9 o'clock, you play with a band called New Monday.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that show and how it got started?
Well, Val, actually the lady that used to watch the door back here, Miss Ann Sawyer's, when the Time Jumpers left, they needed somebody for the Monday. And Val Story, who is a remarkable singer really that I've known for 25 years. Ann had the foresight to think it was high time that Val had a thing going. So I guess I think this is correct. She talked to Val about putting a band together. And Val actually got Doug and Aubrey and Mike Bubb and Adam Manuick and Larry Adam Manuick and Catherine Marks, Carl. And the first show or two, I know they did one with Bradley Walker and maybe one with somebody else. It was just kind of coming in once a month or something. Then they decided to do every other week, and they asked me to come and sit in with them one week, and I never would leave. So I've been here ever since. Then somebody, I think Aubrey, wanted to do it once a week, which really suited me because the band stays tight that way, and it's good for us to we do some original things, of course, but we do some old country things that people don't hear anymore, and we do a little bit of some bluegrass too. And the main thing is we have a great time. These players are world-class players. I'm as much of a fan as I am part of the band, just to get up there and sit next to Aubrey Haney every night and hear him and Jernigan and these guys. They're all just such great players, you know. It's a wonderful time.
And it's evident that you're having a great time. In my opinion, it's one of the greatest shows in town.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I really do.
So I wanted to ask you, just to kind of introduce you as an artist to our audience, how old were you when you first started playing music?
Well, I first started fooling around, probably trying to learn how to play. I was 13, 14, I guess, you know. I was kind of always fascinated with guitars and things. I had a childhood accident and broke my left arm here, which was, being from way back in the country, wasn't set right, so it's always kind of handicapped me. But, you know, unbeknownst to me, the Lord fixed it till I could write some songs. I didn't even know I could do that till I was 24, 25 years old, you know, and things worked out for me, you know. But I've really kind of played music at the amateur level, just off and on, you know, mainly just, you know how country people do. We get together sometimes on the weekends.
Right.
Once or twice a month and have a big picking, you know. And Ricky Skaggs was raised close to me, within a mile. So all the good players that for miles around came in to play with him. So
right.
Anybody that was pretty good in East Kentucky, you know, I knew before I left home to go to the Navy, you know.
Yeah.
So I've been around it a lot. When I got back home out of the Navy, you know, started going to college, I started to be a little more serious about it, but I still didn't think I could make a living at it, you know. Then I started writing these songs, and you know, Ricky was able to put me in the business, so to speak. So. And
you went to college to be a CPA, right?
I did. I had a degree in accounting from Morehead State University, and I wasn't going to be very good at that. I was trying to find something I could do that I could stay around up there in Appalachia, you know, up there in East Kentucky, where I was from. And that was a good choice for that, but unfortunately, you know, you should get a degree in something you really love to do. And absolutely didn't love it. And I've used it, I mean, in a left-handed fashion. You know, I knew about business. Of course, the music business is a totally different thing, but you know, anybody should have their education if you can, because it stays with you all your life. You know, it just worked out for me to be in the music business, you know.
Right. The first song I'm going to play is Black Diamond Strings, which sort of talks about your beginnings in music, right?
Yes, sir.
And could you tell us a little bit about writing that song?
Yeah, I had this idea. All the old timers, when I was a kid, they always, you know, thought Black Diamond Strings was just the best. You know, they was kind of like, I didn't know. You know, I was just a kid, but my grandfather would always tell me, you know, make sure and tell Mr. Hughes when you go there was a couple of places you could buy them. There was a drugstore in town and a jewelry store that sold strings, and I can still see how that looked, those display cases and stuff. You know, most of the time we'd only buy whatever one we broke. But that's what he would always tell me, make sure you ask for Black Diamond Strings. And I just thought it would, I thought I could say something about some people that helped me along in life, you know, in the music business. And I had told my friend Larry Shell that I'd had the idea. And the people's names and the real things I used in that are really true. You know, I use the song title as a nostalgia vehicle to get back through all that stuff. But, you know, it's become one of my most requested songs on the road.
So in 2015, you were inducted into the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame. How did it feel to be honored by your home state like that?
I tell you, it was a great moment for me. But, you know, one of the greatest thing about that's the last thing my dad got to go to with me. He probably wasn't able to be there. That was in April. He died in June. But for them to, I mean, you know, there's people in that thing that are that I could only even dreamed of meeting when I was a kid. You know, I mean, Bill Monroe and Tom T. Hall, and way too many for me to name. You know, of course Ricky and Keith both. And I was just absolutely honored to death. But what made it the most special to me was Dad was there, and my biggest supporter and my biggest fan over the years. And when I look back on it, you know, I mean, I'm fortunate. My whole family, those that were left, were all there. Both my brothers and my mom was gone, so for Dad to be there and for the state of Kentucky to honor me like that was just beyond description, to be honest with you. It really was.
So your latest CD, Tales from Eastern Kentucky, sort of tells about your home state and where you came from, your upbringing. Tell us a little bit about that album.
Yeah, well, it was just a collection of songs that, you know, we'd been writing over. Actually, really, the biggest part of those songs came from the last couple of years. I can't remember exactly what all is on it now, but, you know, I'll tell you, that particular CD, I had 7 chart singles from that CD. In Bluegrass Today, I've never had that many chart singles off of any record I've ever done in my whole career before. I'm flattered that people like it. That's why we make them. We hope people will like it, and that the radio folks, such as yourself, would play these things. You know, it just it means the world to me that there's hardly a better feeling than to have somebody ask you to do one of your songs, or you look out and see them singing the words to it, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's just it's a collection of songs that really fell together good for me. Yeah. Sometimes that happens, and I'm really proud of that record. I really am. I'm really proud of that record. I'm proud of the songs that are on there. You know, it's just been a good career record for me to this point. And you know, I have another record about done that I'm hoping to get out in 2019.
And what can you tell us about that new record?
It's called Where the Trees Know My Name, which is a title of one of the songs that are on there that I wrote with a gal named Leslie Satcher. And it's a rather earthy album too. It's this new single I have out, this Breaking on the Jimmy Ridge thing, has been in the top 10 a couple of times. I don't know if it made the chart this week or not. I haven't looked, to be honest with you. So it's doing well. It's well received, and when I feel like the legs are gone out from under it, I'll probably put another single out. But this record, if it doesn't get out in 2019, it'll be very early in 2020. It's going to have 12, 13 songs on it. I went back and did a couple of things that I'd been meaning to do for a long time. A couple of old country songs that made great bluegrass songs. Cherokee Fiddle, Pick Me Up on Your Way Down, on Harlan Howard's first hit, actually. They made great bluegrass tunes. And I'd been meaning to do some of those things for a long time, and got a couple of great Johnny Williams songs on this record that Johnny let me record. I wrote about half of them, and I'm anxious for our fans to hear them. I think it's a solid collection of songs. It really do. Of course, the proof will be in the pudding, you know. I mean,
Right.
people, you never know what people will really spark on, but you know, you make these records and you're hoping that people approve of what you've done.
Yeah.
That's the only way I know to put it, you know. But you just don't know. You don't know from one record to the next what people will.
Right. Well, personally, I can't wait to hear it.
Well, thank you very much. I can't wait for you to hear it. I've been listening to some of the mixes last couple of days. Chris Latham's got who I engineered, owns the studio and stuff where I recorded this stuff, has been working on. So I got a couple old mountain stories on there.
Yeah.
You know, it's I think it's a solid collection of songs.
So next I'm going to feature a couple of songs from your Tales from Eastern Kentucky album. The first one I'm going to feature is Back When. Tell us a little bit about that song.
I'll tell you what made me think of it. When I was about, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old, we lived so far back out in the country, you know, football was not a big sport in Kentucky, but for some reason, I always liked it. So, Kentucky usually didn't have very good football teams. We always had to wait till basketball season, but I always loved to watch them, and on Sunday there'd be these pro games on. We never had a football. So I used to take an old chop sack, an old coffee sack, and roll that thing up and take seagrass string, baler twine, and make me a football out of it, me and my brother, and we'd get out and play with that thing. I'd balled it up till it was just about the size of one, you know. And I was telling Larry Shell about that one day. I said, you know, we were talking about making our own fun when we were kids. I mean, there wasn't anything like there is now. There was no video games. There was hardly any TV. So one thing led to another, and that song came out of that. But it first came out of that memory of making that old football up, you know.
Right. Yeah.
That's how that came about.
So the next song I'm going to feature is Yardbird, which is a personal favorite. It's a real fun song. I've heard several times at the station inn.
Well, that thing did good. It did real good. It played a lot, you know, got played a lot on the radio. It's just kind of one of them ignorant things, but I mean, a lot of it is true. I mean, country people would, you know, they just rigged chicken's neck. They didn't even see it like people would now at all, you know. It was just a means to an end. I mean,
right.
You know, if it was close to a chop block, they might cut its head off with a hatchet or an axe, but if not, they just snatch it up and wring its neck, you know, and then, of course, I tail all that big tail in it, which makes it a lot, my grandmother would, she'd snatch one right out from under your feet and wring its neck, you know. Just a collection of all that stuff. I thought I could make it. Larry Shell and I had tried to write that song about 12, 15 years ago. Just talking about it like I am to you right now about that. People wringing chickens' necks and stuff and cutting them up and frying them. And I was going to IBMA, I believe it was the first year that the show was in Raleigh. Me and him had worked on that and fooled around and never could come up with anything. On my way to Raleigh, I stopped to use the restroom, and I got back on the interstate. The whole chorus of that came to me, and I took my phone and recorded it in it. That Yardbird, pecking on the ground. And just as soon as I got it recorded, I sent it to Larry. And I think it might have been even the next day. He said, when I got up, I looked at my messages and there was a big smiley face by it. So I figured, well, he liked that, you know. So
Yeah.
next time me and him got together, we were able to piece the rest of the tale together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just a natural to put on that record. So,
Right. Yeah.
you know, it's been a good one for me.
So next, could you tell us about the song Lawrence County Seat?
Yeah. Connie Lee, who's a great songwriter, she at the time that song was started, she lived in Arkansas. And Hazel Dickens actually introduced me to her at the IBMA show here in Nashville. And Connie and I had been writing some songs after Hazel introduced us, and she was from Johnson County, Kentucky, which is the next county over from us. And I don't know how many songs we'd written together, but a few, you know. And she also wrote Sadie's Got Her New Dress On for Doyle Lawson, and what's the name thing, big thing she wrote for Dale Ann too, Dale Ann Bradley, one of Dale Ann's big numbers. I apologize, Connie, I can't remember it. But anyway, she had this song started, and she asked me what I thought about it. She was calling it the Old Church Pew, of course. And boy, I just really liked it. She didn't exactly have the melody and stuff, so me and her fooled around with it in 2009, and we got she had kind of that little front part, and we got that next little verse and the chorus, and just said, next time I see you, we'll finish that. I never saw her again. She kind of got sick, and she didn't get to it. Some way or another, her illness kind of took her ability away to write songs, you know. And her and her husband moved from Arkansas to North Carolina. My sister gave me one of the original church pews out of the Cordell Free Will Baptist Church. She had it refinished and gave it to me. Now, I'm not sure that caused me to think about the song, but it couldn't have hurt. So I was putting the songs together for Tales from East Kentucky. That came through my mind, and I dug it out. I got in a Word file, and I dug it out and found out where we'd started in 2009. I started fooling with that thing, and it would not leave me alone, and I didn't quit fooling with it till 2 o'clock or 2:30 in the morning. And when I got that bridge, I thought I had the song done, and I immediately typed it in a message and sent it to Connie. And I said, look, I don't know if this is it or not, but if you like it, I'm going to record it. And sometime the next day, she said, oh man, so that's it. So that's the story of it. The reason it's called the Lawrence County Seat is because right in this room here, Craig Martin, another good songwriter friend of mine, I was trying to think of something creative to name it, because we were just calling it the Old Church Pew, which is what its title probably should be. He said, well, ain't you from Lawrence County? And I said, yeah. And he said, why don't you call that the Lawrence County Seat? I thought, Craig, daggone it. I thought that was the greatest thing, because it was about a bench, a seat, you know. So that's the reason it's called the Lawrence County Seat.
The next one, Lonesome Skinner Time. How about that album?
Let's see, about 2003, I played a show at the IBMA, one of their main showcases, with Lonesome Standard Time bands from that era, which would have been Dave Talbot, Bowie Beach, Terry Eldridge, Chris Davis. Gosh, I can't remember who all was in that band. Kim Gardner, of course. And this guy from CMH Records, David Harley, was at the show. And the next day, I saw him in the hallway or something. He wanted to know if I could go have lunch with him. And I said, well, yeah, I guess. He said to me, was there anything that you have not done that you wanted to do? I said, well, you know, I always thought I could make this Allman Brothers band record. I mean, we were just talking. I didn't You know, I wasn't
Right.
expecting anything. I mean, I knew he was running this record label in California, CMH Records. So he says, "Well, I'll call you in a few days. You know, maybe we can do something together." So in the meantime, I got to thinking about it. Well, if this guy did call my number on it, can I actually do that? When I got to thinking about it, I didn't think I could. I mean, I could have done, as far as the Allman Brothers band goes, I could have done from once it started being more country probably, because that would have transposed easier. But I didn't think you could do one of those records without doing Statesboro Blues and Stormy Monday and One Way Out, which I just didn't think transposed well to acoustic instruments. So when he called me on it. He said, "Okay, I'm ready to do this with you." And I said, "David, I'm sorry, I kind of led you on about that." I said, I don't think that's going to work for me. I don't think it transposes well, you know."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Well, is there anything you could do?" And just before I even thought, I said, "Well, I could probably do one of these Leonard Skinner things," because really those things were always just kind of like country guys to me with electric guitars.
Right.
If you think about the songs, you know, I knew they would work.
Yeah.
And he said, "Okay, well, let's do it." So that's how that whole thing came about. I knew I could do it pretty easy because I'd done 75 or 80% of them songs in bars, you know, that I'd played in. I mean, if you didn't do that, you couldn't do nothing, you know. So we'd played a lot of those songs.
Yeah.
I had sung them in my band, you know, at the time, man. I mean, they just worked that stuff up till it was. Janae Fleener was in that band too, I think, at that time, and Tom Roddy. We got Tom Roddy to overdub that percussion part, which CMH didn't want me to use, because they thought it was bluegrass. And I said, "Well, it is bluegrass, you know, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with having this percussion in there, you know. It really kind of ties this stuff together." So I'm really proud of that record. There's people still today find that record.
Yeah.
You know, they'll find that record and like, "My God, can you still play this stuff?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I can still play it, you know." And we do Call Me the Breeze and Curtis Lowe, a couple of those things in shows from time to time. You know, they're big. They become staples of our band, you know, as times went on. So
Right. And I'm going to play Call Me the Breeze.
Well, I appreciate it. It's an old J.J. Cale song, you know. His version was really, really laid back. I don't know if you ever heard his record of it. He's a songwriter of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing's been recorded a lot now. It's Eric Clapton, JJ had a great record of it. Of course, I think Leonard Skinner did. It was never a hit for them, but it was such a big concert song. You know, it wasn't Freebird, but it was a big concert song for them.
Right. Yeah.
I saw them several times, and they did it every time I ever saw them.
Yeah.
You know, so big concert song for them.
I couldn't interview Larry Cordle and not talk about this next song. They Call You Mr. Highway 40 Blues. So that's one of the first songs you ever wrote, right?
Well, it was, I don't know if it's the first song I ever wrote. It's the first thing I think it was, that I really thought was maybe good enough for somebody to use, you know? I mean, I didn't really know. I probably wrote it in 76 or 7. I think Ricky had just, maybe was still doing Boone Creek. I was working, trying to be a CPA 3 nights a week. I had sold all the musical things I had from all my instruments and amps and stuff from when I left school. And I was not going to be fooling with music anymore, and that lasted about 6 months. And I started this band, started rehearsing with these guys from over in Jackson, Kentucky. And the next thing I knew, we were playing in Hazard, Kentucky 3 nights a week. So I was kind of burning both ends of the candle pretty bad. But we had some studio time booked, and I was hoping I could find some kind of a song that we could do, that band. It's called Southern Portrait, that band was. And coming home from one of them gigs one night, I lived on this little spur of a road that was right off of Kentucky State Route 40. When I came to turn off up there to go, I was living in a trailer park up there. From this gig in Hazard, there was one of them great big 40 Kentucky Route 40 signs right there where I turned, and the whole front part of that thing fell out on me, you know. I wrote it down. I got up the next day. I wrote the other two verses of it, and I never really tried to play it or anything until I had it written, because I knew how the melody was in my head. I could hear it in my head. I sat on that thing 4 or 5 years till Ricky got in a position that he could record it himself. He recorded it on me about 1980, which I still have these multi-tracks. One of these days I may try to put that stuff out. It was really just demos of songs I'd been writing. We made 10 sides, and I wrote 9 of them. They were the songs I came to town with, and one of those songs was Highway 40 Blues.
Yeah.
But those sessions that we did in Lexington, Kentucky, was Ricky and Jerry Douglas. And Bela Fleck played on Highway 40 Blues. He was 19 years old. And then there were some local musicians, guys that I'd been, but these tracks are really good. I told Ricky about a year ago, I was thinking about maybe Ricky's got some 16 track heads. I was thinking about going down there and trying to remix all this stuff and putting it out, and it's not really bluegrassy. It's just a collection of songs.
Right.
Of course it's got those boys on it, so it's. They can really play.
Yeah.
Then they were playing the frets off of them. So I'm really proud of those. What I got to town on, how I got here.
So up next, I wanted to ask you about Murder on Music Row.
That came from, that song title came from my old friend Larry Shell again. When my daughter was little, I decided I'd quit traveling. Me and Glenn Duncan had been working. With the first Lonesome Standard Time, we recorded 3 records for Sugar Hill. It was the biggest time of Glenn's recording career, and kind of one of the biggest times in my career too. We just really couldn't afford to be out playing. We took off the road. I was off from the time Kelby was my daughter was about 3, until she was about 10. I went to Ryman. I saw Del McCurry and somebody else. I came home and told my wife, I said, I'm not gonna be able to just let it go. I'm gonna try to make another record. So I picked out these songs: Black Diamond Strings, Jesus and Bartenders. I don't know, I had a couple of old things, and I had a collection of songs together. So I wasn't really in the mood to write songs. And Larry called me one day and he said, "Man, I've got this great song title for us." And I said, "Oh, well, yeah, I'm getting ready to record these songs." He and I had an office together down here on 18th. I said, "What?" Since it was him,
Yeah.
and I'd written so many songs, I said, "What's it called?" And he said, "It's called Murder on Music Row." And I said, "Oh gosh, isn't it about killing country music?" And he said, "That's what I had in mind." I said, "Okay." So I said, "Well, let's just try to write it while we're thinking about it." I still didn't think about it being on the record, because I already had the stuff picked for the record. And he and I got together just 2 or 3 days later. Next time we had an opportunity to get together, and we wrote it. And we had most of it wrote before lunch. I think we came back and moved a word or two around here and there and made a little tape of it. And I went on and made the record that became Murder on Music Row. And the last night of the sessions, I told the guys in the band, I said, I'd played it a couple of times in town, and I saw the reaction it got was just crazy, after it was written. And I told the guys, I said, "Man, I need a demo of this thing anyway, so let's just cut it." People were just so ape over it, that I decided I'd call the record that, and then I thought about what the art might look like and all that stuff, and came up with all that cover idea and all that stuff. So,
and the cover on that album's great.
Well, thank you very much. We found a place over here on 16th where we could draw them chalk men. And I took Bruce Boughton's steel guitar and put it up on that gurney. Looked like it was loading in that hearse. And we'd been talking about the demise of country music a long time. So honestly, it just kind of fell out of us, really.
Yeah.
And I never gave it another thought. I had no idea that. I didn't think people. Once I decided to record it, I was pretty excited about that. But as far as George Strait, no, I never thought about that happening. But they heard my record of it, or George Strait's manager, a fellow named Irv Woolsey. There was a guy in town here, a disc jockey, Carl P. Mayfield, that made it into a big thing. He made it into. He made this whole show, his radio show around it. Mm-hmm. For maybe a month, and had a website and this whole 9 yards, and he'd have people coming in and talking about how country music was, what their opinion of all this stuff was, and he was playing this song of mine. He told me the first day he had it that he played it. His show went from 6 in the morning till 10 in the morning. He told me he played it 8 times. Played it every 30 minutes. You know, and my phone was just full of people calling me. And, you know, so George and Alan actually had been talking, I guess, about doing a thing together. And when Earl found it and brought the song to George, he asked Alan. Of course, it hit Alan right between the eyes. So I had a #1 bluegrass record on it, which it was not a bluegrass song, but I guessed right. I thought, well, bluegrass fans will probably like old country music too, right, because I always did. Yeah. And I guessed right. Mm-hmm. You know, it was on the same record as Black Diamond Strings, and they were both nominated for Song of the Year in 2000 or 2001. That was pretty interesting to me to have both songs in there. Of course, Murder on Music Row was just a runaway with. We got nominated for 2 Grammys. George and Alan won a Grammy on it, so I kind of secretly count that. Even though they didn't give me one. Right. But I kind of secretly count that anyway. So right. It was a blessing, and it was how we felt. We felt like, you know, there wasn't hardly any country music left, and you know, the song now, it's more appropriate now than it was then, because right, it's gotten farther and farther left, and every time. I shouldn't say this, but I will. Every time they have one of these CMA shows, I get all this free publicity because people will start posting George and Alan's playing it on the CMA show that year that they did it, 2001 or something. So I get all this free publicity, you know. Right. It's great. It's been great for me. It's been a great calling card, you know. I'm proud of it.
I wanted to talk to you about the album Pud Markham's Hangin', and in particular the song Hello, My Name is Cole. Kathy Mattea kind of made that famous, didn't she?
Yeah, she cut it a couple of years after I did, Yeah, she, of course, Kathy's from West Virginia, and I'd had a couple other songs on Kathy. So that song was just a song idea. I got it home one night, and, you know, I thought if I could write something from Cole's perspective. You know, I like doing things like that, like writing things about things that I know can't speak, but what if it could? What if I could imagine what it would sound like? Yeah. The Church Pew song, the old Bandit song, you know, I've got several things that I've tried to achieve that, and that's what I decided to do with Cole. You know, let me introduce me. Hello, my name is Cole, you know, as if it was talking to you. And I told Janae, she and I had a writing session, and of course she's not from that, but she hung with me on it, you know, and came up with that great little fiddle part, that da 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 thing, you know, and I had that little spacey 9-chord thing there on the front, and we just hung with it. I'm really proud of that song. It's kind of it's not pro Cole or con Cole. It's just
kind of tells it.
It's just factual, you know. And that first line, I mean, once we came up with that thing, you know, I just thought that was a cool first line, and it went from that. You know, it was a thing that I pieced together all these little ideas. A lot of times, late at night, I'll get the computer out and dink around. You know, I'm a kind of a night person. I don't go to sleep till 2:30 in the morning as a rule. So I get these things out. My wife will be asleep, you know, and I get these things out. So I'd piece these little collections of thoughts together, and I told Janae, and she liked it, and hung with me on it. Then we came up with that idea of, okay, well, let's put this transition in there, you know, and go to an E key and have you sing this. Yeah. you know, and I just love what she did with it. You know,
Yeah.
It's a great thing.
It is great.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm tickled with it. I really am.
So next I wanted to talk to you about the project Livin', Lovin', Losin' Songs of the Louvin Brothers. I'm going to play that song You're Running Wild that you and Jerry Salley and Carl sang on that record.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that album?
Originally, Carl Jackson, Glenn Duncan, Bruce Boughton, and myself had a little record deal on Capitol Records. And one of the songs we had recorded for that was You're Running Wild. When Carl got the idea to do the Louvins thing, of course the Louvin brothers one had the big hit on that thing. It was written by Ray Edenton and somebody else. Ray Edenton was a great rhythm guitar player, played on millions of records. We decided to record it for the Louvins thing. Ray called me, who I don't know very well, by the way, Ray Edenton, because that was before, obviously that was another era here, when Ray was a big player in town. But this meant a lot to me. He called me and told me that of all the versions of that he had ever heard, that was his favorite. You know, and how that came about was the Louvin brothers was just a duet. We'd came up with the idea, we pieced that arrangement together in Carl's living room of me singing leading the first part and then flipping it around to high lead in the end and letting Carl have it. Yeah. So we took what was just a regular duet and made a cool trio thing out of it, I think. You know. And
that's a fantastic track.
Well, really thank you very much. We were always really proud of it. You know, it's I think.
And it's Grammy winning.
Carl won a couple of Grammys on that album.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of always count, even though they didn't give me one, I kind of always count that one too. You know?
Right, as you should.
Well, they changed the rules, you know. Used to, if you were just kind of a part of a record that won it, you got one. But by the time that came around, it's about 2004, they had changed it to you had to be on 60 or 70% of the record before you actually got one. Because I'd actually told them, out to the Grammy people, I was like, well, you know, I'll buy it. I mean, don't, you know, I'd just like to have it. And they was like, oh, no, you can't do that. So we'll give you the certificate if you want to give us, I think it was $150. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You know, no, that's all right. I wish I would have done it now because I would at least, but I didn't, you know, I said that I was aggravated because they wouldn't sell me the little trophy, you know, the little Grammy thing.
Yeah.
But I kind of always count that one in my private stash, even though I didn't get one.
Right.
But the project did get one.
Yeah. So last I wanted to talk about the Give Me Jesus album.
Yes.
That's 2017, and that's also Grammy nominated.
It was.
The first song I'm going to play off this album, I've got three, is Gone On Before.
Yeah.
Could you tell me about how you wrote that song?
I had a dream about my mother. She passed away in 2006, and we were really close. And I guess a couple of years went by easily before I just had a dream about her one night. I heard a lot of laughter off in another room, and I recognized one of them as being my mom. And I went through this door to see where they're at. There were a lot of people sitting around the table, and they were laughing and enjoying themselves. Of course, I began to weep, and my mom had asked me, she said, honey, what's wrong with you? And I woke up, you know, before I could figure out who the rest of them were. But I came away with that song idea, and that's how God works, you know. Ronnie Bowman and I had talked about writing together. Every time we'd see one another, it was like, you know, like old songwriters do. I mean, hey, let's get together and try to, yeah, we're going to do that sometime. In between the time I had this dream and the time that Ronnie and I got together, his mom died. He told me the only reason he came to the writing session with me was because it was me. He said, because I just was not interested in writing songs. I was just still dealing with the grief and all that stuff. I told him when he got there, I said, Ronnie, I've got this song idea. I don't know if we can sit in here and do it or not, because I could tell it was going to be emotional. It was going to be heavy. And he said, yeah, we can. So we gutted it out. We sat there and And it's I thank God for it. I do, because so many people have emailed me and told me they asked me if they could use it at funerals, and asked me if it has a lot of hope in it. As Christians, we believe we know we're gonna get to see our loved ones again when this is over here. And that's what really the song's about. I mean, it was hard to write because it drug up a lot of things you don't want to think about.
Right.
But in the end of it, I see the hope in it and stuff, and I see how much hope it gives people, and I just thank God for it. I really do.
It's a very moving song.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We close with it a lot here, and I get a lot of mail about it.
Yeah.
It's become one of my more requested things on the road. It's in every show.
The next song I'm going to play is The Old Things Walking About. What's the story behind that song?
My great uncle, that's where that came from. That was an old family story. He was a very nervousy guy. And if you can just imagine what it was like in the mountains, like in the 30s and 40s, well, there wasn't any noise pollution. So these guys had come up one of these little old hollers up there advertising a tent meeting over in Blaine. And they had one of these loudspeakers on top of the car, and they had some kind of recorder rigged up, and they were playing gospel music. Uncle Georgie heard this. He lived about a half a mile from my grandfather further on up this holler. The story goes that he ran, although he thought it was the end of time. He heard this gospel music come out. I mean, it sounds funny, but my uncle used to tell it. He could tell it so good. He said he come running down there to my grandfather's, and he says, look at here, I think the old thing's walking about. He said, I heard all this, the angels and stuff, and so my grandfather's he sits on the porch all the time. My grandfather did. He says, my uncle says, your grandpa never even raised up. He said he's sitting out there chewing tobacco. He says, George, I doubt it's the end of time. Said, Bible says in the twinkling of an eye. I don't believe you'd had time to run down here and told us about it. But anyway, we tried to write this thing 20 years ago. I've tried to figure out how to piece that together. The old thing's walking about, just from the story. It was a funny story from my family. So people hear the song, I'm sure they think, what is that guy talking about? But the first part of the song, I made into that tale they told about him. So people that knew me, everybody around in the country kind of knew that tale on him. So I figured, well, people that know my family, that'll be for them. But then the farther we got into the song, I realized it's pretty serious business, here. So I love that track, and these gals that I got to sing them parts, one of my favorite musics is this old black spiritual stuff. I love it, I truly do. And so I've found a couple of gals that could really do that. Angie Prim and Gail Mays, and man, were they able to really bring that thing together. That's my favorite track on that album, really, to be honest with you.
It's a very vocally powerful song.
Well, thank you. Yeah. But that's where it came from. It's just an old country story of a great uncle of mine.
The final song I'm going to do for this show, it's another great track from this album. You got Val and Carl singing with you on it. It's the title track from the album, Give Me Jesus. I'm taking a bit of the page out of the New Monday book, and I'm going to end each show with a gospel song. Yes, and I wanted to end this week with Give Me Jesus. So can you tell me how you came across this song?
It's an old song. I didn't know this until I was getting ready to license it. I heard the song from Val. Val had been doing it for years. We would go to Mississippi in December and do these shows, and Val would always sing, Give Me Jesus. Well, one day I'm working this show in, I believe it was Greenup, Kentucky. It was like a little afternoon thing. I was by myself, didn't even have a band. And I'd been sitting around the house dinking with it, and I thought, man, I'll see if I can remember enough of this thing to sing here. So I sang this thing, and it went over really good. The next day, I went on up where I was from there and went to church back up there in the mountains where I'm from, and they asked me to get up and sing. So I sung that song, and people just loved it, and I thought, well, doggone, You know, I love the song because the song is just so simple to me when you think about it, you know. Give me Jesus, give me Jesus. You can have all this world, give me Jesus, you know. I mean, I mean that's about as simple as it gets, and it's really about as factual as it gets to me, because everything in this world don't mean anything, you know.
Right.
So I just loved it. I learned it from Val. I couldn't do it like her, so I made up that little thing that's on there, kind of, you know. I just got in the studio and made it that way, you know. And I'd already been playing it, like I said, live. I'd played it around several times. And every time I'd go to church, that's what they'd always ask me to do that song. So I thought, well, I'm going to put it on this album. That's what I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
So that's how
it turned out great.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, Val and Carl really brought that thing in there. You know, of course, they'd been singing it a long time. They knew how to.
Yeah.
They was on a lot of that album, as a matter of fact, you know. And Jerry. Jerry was on it. Bradley Walker. That album did well for me.
Yeah.
It did really well for me.
Yeah. It's a favorite of mine.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.